In this video, we are going to be talking about data blending. So I wanted to explain to you really quickly the difference between data blending and join. With join, you are combining two data frames into one. With data blending, you are using data sets from two separate data sources in your view. So with join, you are taking two data frames and you're combining it into one data frame. But with data blending in Tableau, you are just creating your view with data from two separate data sources. With data blending, you need to have a column in common, but that column needs to be a dimension and not a measure. And with data blending, the first data source you use in your view is called the primary data source. With this background information on data blending and the difference between data blending and join, let's go ahead and let me show you how to blend data in Tableau. So right here I am in Tableau and I have two separate data sources. As you can see, this orders data source, these are the columns in it, these are the dimensions in it and measures in it. And this quota data source, these are the dimensions and these are the measures in it. And if you go to data source, you can see here there are two separate data sources. So this video I am going to show you how to blend data. And basically blending data is where you create a visualization from two separate data sources. Now if I just try to build a visualization from these two data sources, it's going to throw an error. Let me show you. If let's say I bring in state into the view and then go to this data source and bring quota into the view also, it's going to give me a warning that there's no relationship between these two data sources and I need to establish a relationship between these two data sources before I can create a view from the two separate data sources. So I am just going to clear out everything that I have right now. To build a visualization from these two data sources, they need to have a dimension in common, like I said before. And in this case, we are just going to make state from orders and quota, and in quota data source we will use US state. So if we look at the data here, we can see the US state from quota data source. And then if we look at the data here and look at state, right here, so we can see that the state column here matches the information on quota US state. But right now I cannot create a relationship between orders and quota on US state. Why? Because US state is not the same name as state. One way to blend the data is just to rename it. So for example, if I go here and let's say rename this to state, now I can blend easily between orders and quota. So for example, if I bring, let's say, department into the view and then go to quota, you can see a link icon appears here. And this link icon means that I can use this column to link these two data sources together. If I click on that, now these two data sources are linked together. And this blue icon means that orders is the primary data source and quota is the secondary data source. And this red icon, link icon, means that quota is linked to orders. And now I can create visualization between the two data sources. That is one way to establish a relationship between two data sources and be able to create a view from it. The second way to do this is to do it manually. So I'll go ahead and change this. Actually, before I change this back to US state, if you go to data and go to edit blend relationships, as you can see there's an automatic relationship between state in quota and state in orders. But if I change this back to its formal name, US state, and if I bring department into the view and go back to quota, as you can see there's no link icon right there because the name of this column is different from the name of any columns here, even though it has the same data. So yes, we can't establish a relationship between these two data sources. And if I bring quota into the view, it's going to throw an error like before. And if we go to data, edit blend relationship, as you can see when you go to automatic, there's no automatic relationship between these two data sources. So one way to create a relationship between these two data sources so you can use it in your view is to rename one of the columns. Another way to do it is to do it from data, edit blend sources, then you click on custom, and you can choose any of these as the primary. If you choose this as the primary, the other one becomes secondary. It doesn't really matter. You click on custom, then click on add, and US state from here, and then state here, and then you click OK. Now you've established a relationship between US state and state, and you click OK. Now when you go to something like orders and bring department into the view and go back to quota, as you can see there's a link icon right there which will allow you to link this data source to this data source to establish a relationship between these two data sources. And when I click on it, now there's a relationship between this data source and this data source, and that's why this gets an orange icon and this gets a blue icon. If I bring this into the view first and go back to orders, as you can see the red icon appears here in this data source, and I can use this to link the two data sources. So in summary, that is basically how you establish a relationship between two data sources, and establishing a relationship between two data sources is what will allow you to build visualization from two different data sources, and that's what's called data blending. Let's go ahead and build a simple visualization. Let's take cells and add it to columns, and let's take subregion and add it to rows. Let's filter the data to only show US state, so let's go show filter, and let's bring this here, and let's remove null and Canada and just have Central, East, South, and West region, which is US regions. Now let's go to quota data source, and let's take quota and add it to detail. And let's click OK, and let's click on this to use it as a linking source between these two data sources. Now let's add a reference line to represent the quota for each subregion. So in previous videos I showed you how to add a reference line, and in this case let's just go to analytics and let's take reference line and let's add it to the cell level, and let's say we want quota total So now we are showing the quota for each subregion. Now let's create a calculation that shows us if cells have met quota for each subregion. And then we use the new calculation to color code our visualization. Let's go back to the orders data and let's create a new calculation. So basically this calculation is saying, is the cells greater than or equal to the quota for each subregion? Then we can click OK. And when we go back to orders, we will see the new calculated field. And then we can use this new calculated field to color code our visualization. And we get a filter here that says false or true. So now we can see that the southern region, the cells from the southern region either met or exceeded the quota, and the cells from the central, east, and western region did not meet or exceed the quota. So that is how you blend data between two data sources, and this is an example of how you could create visualization using information from two separate data sources. That's it for this video, and I'll see you on the next one.